Okay, let's just dive right into this. I want you to take a second and recall a very vivid, clear memory from your past. Think of a specific day that you remember absolutely perfectly. Really put yourself back in that moment. Picture the clothes you were wearing, recall the smell of the room, the quality of the light coming through the window, the temperature of the air around you. Bring to mind the exact words someone said to you. You're completely certain of it, right? Well, welcome to this explainer, where we're going to explore the architecture of that exact certainty and look at exactly how your brain is managing that mental file.
Seriously, hold that confident memory in your mind right now. Think about the exact words someone said to you in that specific memory. Lock that sensory detail in. Because, well, I'm about to share an incredibly unsettling revelation about that exact scene you're picturing in your head right now.
Here's the truth bomb straight from our source material. You almost certainly have it wrong. And actually, scratch that, not just a little bit wrong. You are fundamentally, structurally, and confidently wrong. And the absolute wildest part? The part of your brain that's responsible for that super vivid memory literally has no idea that it's wrong. You trust it completely, that the confidence you feel, it has almost nothing to do with whether that memory is actually accurate.
See, we tend to think of our memory as this perfect, high-definition recording that we just press play on. We assume the tape is fully intact, but that's simply not how memory works. It's actually a process of rebuilding from scratch. Every single time you remember something, you're stitching together fragments, you're filling in the gaps with educated guesses, and then you're resaving a totally new version that has quietly shifted from whatever the original actually was.
Section 1. The power of one word.
Let's look at exactly how easily this rebuilding process is manipulated. Back in the 1970s, a psychologist named Elizabeth Loftus proved this illusion with just devastating clarity through a series of famous car accident studies. She brought people into a lab, showed them footage of car accidents, and then she asked them a single question about the speed of the cars. But here's the trick. She changed one word depending on the group. One group was asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? The other group was asked, how fast were they going when they contacted each other? They watched the exact same footage, they were asked the exact same question, except for that one single word. And this brilliantly illustrates the power of suggestion. Because the group that heard the word smashed didn't just report significantly higher speeds, they actually began to remember seeing broken glass on the road. But here's the catch. There was absolutely no broken glass in the footage. None. Zero. They completely created it in their minds. And yet, they were absolutely certain it was there. Just one single word totally rewrote what they saw with their own two eyes.
Which brings us to Section 2, the science of rewriting.
So why does our brain do this? We have to understand that this is not a glitch, okay? This isn't some rare edge case. This is how your memory works by default, all the time, for everything. Storing experiences in perfect high definition would be catastrophically expensive in terms of your brain's energy. So instead, it acts as a highly efficient energy-saving mechanism. It just stores the gist of what happened, the emotional charge, and then fills in the rest later. Which brings us to a really fascinating biological mechanic called reconsolidation. In the early 2000s, neuroscientist Kareem Nader discovered why our memories are so flexible while he was studying fear memories in rats. He found that every time a memory is retrieved, it becomes temporarily fragile. It becomes chemically unstable. It's briefly open to being rewritten before it locks back into place. So the very act of remembering makes the file vulnerable to being overwritten by your current beliefs, your current mood, and literally everything you've learned since the event originally happened. So here is the absolutely crucial takeaway. The memory you believe is the most solid, the one you are most confident in, is the one you have revisited the most. But because of reconsolidation, every time you access it, you overwrite a slightly different version of it and save that as the new original. Which means the memory you've revisited the most is also the memory you've rewritten the most.
Section 3, inventing your own past.
Now, let's look at how the brain handles entirely fabricated events that never even happened. Elizabeth Loftus ran a second study, and she enlisted the families of the participants to help convince them that they had gotten lost in a shopping mall as kids. The families provided incredibly realistic details, like names of actual shops they used to visit, who was there, what the mall looked like. Now, to be perfectly clear, this traumatic event had never happened. Never. Yet within just a few sessions of discussing it, a massive 25%, that's 1 in 4 participants, began to vividly remember it. They described the fear they felt, the crowd around them, even the appearance of the older stranger who supposedly helped them find their parents. These were completely fabricated memories that became totally indistinguishable from real ones. Why on earth would our minds do this? Because, as the source puts it, your brain abhors a blank space. The mental record of our lives is always incomplete. It's just full of holes. So when there's a gap, the brain doesn't just leave it blank. It actively invents details and fills the gap with something that fits, just to make the story of your life feel coherent, continuous, and whole. It isn't a disorder, it's a storytelling mechanism. Now, you might be thinking, okay, sure, maybe for getting lost in a shopping mall, but I know exactly where I was during major historical events, right? Well, psychologist Ulrich Neisser spent years studying exactly that. He looked at what we call flashbulb memories, which are those intensely vivid, almost photographic recollections we have of major cultural shocks. Think like a space shuttle explosion or a massive national tragedy. People describe these moments with extraordinary confidence, down to the exact room they were in, who was sitting right beside them, and the precise lighting of the environment. But Neisser's research revealed what we can call the flashbulb shift. When he followed up with these exact same participants months and years later, the details had shifted dramatically. Sometimes the new memories directly contradicted what the people had written down immediately after the event occurred. The actual facts completely dissolved, but despite that, the emotional intensity stayed razor sharp. You don't actually remember what happened. You remember how it made you feel, and your brain just authors the rest of the story around that feeling.
Section 4. A feature, not a bug.
Let's see how this builds. Because hearing that your memories are partly authored might sound terrifying at first. But this cognitive flaw, it's actually a beautiful, deeply hopeful thing. If reconstruction is always shaped by who you currently are, then your past is not a fixed, finished thing. It's a living document. This is exactly why therapy works. Therapy helps people revisit old, painful memories with new understanding and a feeling of safety in the present. It uses that same process of reconsolidation to allow the brain to save a revised version of that memory, a version where the meaning has healed, even if the events themselves obviously haven't changed. You can't change what happened, but your brain changes how you remember it every single time you look. And this editing process happens continuously. Every single night while you sleep, your brain goes through these steps. You experience the day, you drift off, and your brain quietly consolidates those experiences. But while it does that heavy lifting, it also quietly revises the older files you've been carrying for years, connecting new insights to old data. You literally wake up holding an unconscious edit of your own life story, and it feels like it's always been exactly this way. So the next time you confidently say, I remember exactly what happened, maybe just pause for a second. Your memory isn't a recording device because, well, accurate recording systems don't grow, they don't heal, they don't reinterpret a painful past and find something worth carrying forward. The brain's tendency to bend, to fill in gaps, and to prioritize meaning over cold, hard accuracy is the exact feature that makes you beautifully human. The version of the past you carry with you is real in the way that matters most, because it shaped the person who exists right now watching this explainer, even if it didn't happen quite the way you remember it. So I leave you with this question to ponder tonight. When something happens and you feel absolutely certain you'll remember it exactly, what will your brain rewrite? Because you will remember it. Just not the way it actually happened.